welcome to Stories of Hope. I'm Christine Hotchkiss. Each week, I bring you stories of education, inspiration, and my biggest word of all is to give hope. Today, I want to take and acknowledge my studio sponsor, the Motivated Mind Group, your creative agency here in downtown Chandler, as well as I want to say thank you to my sponsor episode for today, and that is My Source Media, is a printing company known for its personal attention and out-of-box thinking that helps businesses succeed. They are a husband and wife-owned small business located here also in Chandler, Arizona, that offers a large variety of printed items, including small format commercial printing, large format signage, custom apparel, and promotional products with over 20 years of industry experience. Thank you to My Source Media. Now to my interview. This one's good because of how I met this lady. My guest today is Jennifer Scott. She is the producer, the director, the writer, the actress to the movie Eyes Upon Waking. It's inspired by a true story about one woman's struggle to come to terms with her own existence. This project is about the disease of suicide and how it is misunderstood by society. The film uncovers the darkness in the minds of those who suffer from their emotions, yet shows how light can be found with the right kind of help.
Yep.
This film is for any person with a friend or a family member who has taken their own life and is left asking why. This is a topic of conversation that is very sensitive. Please help me welcome both my guests, Jennifer Scott and Judy Carmen Gonzalez.
Hello.
Hi.
So I had the privilege of actually doing the Q&A in a film festival up in Show Low, and you were there. Your film was being premiered there, and I didn't get to see it, but I heard such great ravings about the reviews, and you won several awards. And so I was like, I gotta know who this little lady is.
The award was bigger than me.
It was, but a very well-deserved one at that. And this is about you.
Yeah.
What, I don't want to say the word what inspired you, but why did you decide to put your story, as we know everyone has a story, why did you decide to put your story into a movie and be vulnerable for the whole world to know that you weren't perfect?
Well, so believe it or not, so 22 years ago I tried taking my life twice within a week.
Oh,
And
in a week?
In a week.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was determined.
Okay.
And during that time, I wasn't really getting any good acting roles, so they sit here and say, as an actor, write a role for yourself. And so I was gonna write a short, and because it's something I knew, and I thought, this might have different ranges. And I hired Andy Golub, who's my co-writer on this. And, I said, yeah, maybe I'll try directing it, let's just kind of see how it goes. Well, when I was watching TV, Marie Osmond's son just took his life, and one of the actors from Growing Pains.
Yeah.
And what I was really surprised at was that the media was picking it up, or that they were talking about it. Because usually celebrities, they keep that private, or it's not mentioned.
Very much so.
So I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I went back to Andy and I said, something tells me we've got a feature here. So why not for fun? I didn't think it would ever go anywhere. I was like, why don't we just write it? If anything, it'd be good for me getting everything out there on the paper.
Yeah.
And so then I started showing it to people. And to my surprise, they're like, these are my words. How do you know my story? And I'm like, what do you mean those are your words? That's my story. That's my life. And then I realized, oh my gosh, we're all in this together, but suffering silently. And I knew I had to do it then. But the problem was, I've never produced.
That was my next question. How do you produce something when you're actually it's your story? How do you put it into words? Because now you've also got emotions in there.
Yeah.
So how are you going to do it clearly?
Well, and I was never planning on playing myself.
Well, we'll get to
Yeah,
that.
we'll get to that too.
Okay.
But so for that, I've been an executive assistant for, I think at that time, like way over 25 years. And so I looked at it as like, well, it's a business, so, these are the different tiers and what you have to do. I'm like, well, why not treat it like a business? the only thing is, it would have been nice if I could hire people in the beginning
Easier,
stages. Yeah. But you learn a lot. And to tell you the truth, I'm not going to lie. I wish now that I know that I've gone into producing, I wish I would have gone to film school. But what I've learned too is, you know, you want to learn filmmaking, you make a film, not a short, a feature. So that's basically how it began, where it started out as my story, and I became a voice for others. And so my character, even though the audience, they're going through everything that Taryn's going through and discovering, but they're also feeling as if, wow, somebody gets me, or that's what I have.
I call it the Me Too factor.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I'm going through that too. But
Oh,
then
okay.
you're going, that's why I call it the Me Too factor.
Okay.
That you can relate, but not everyone wants to say, out of shame, people don't want to say, I did this. You already said, I already tried it twice in a week. Can I tell you something? This will probably be the first time also. We're not perfect.
No.
And I think the society has this way of us thinking, or we think society has this way that we have to look a certain way to have the right relationship, or we have to look a certain way to have a certain way of living, or have friendships only in this way, or have a career in this way, and in fact it's not. And so I also have some stuff that I've had to deal with, and we can look like we're put together on the outside, right? Right?
Well, let me tell
but
you.
we fall apart. That I also
Nobody-
tried to attempt
yeah.
on my life twice at one time too.
Yeah. And you hear a lot of that because a lot of people, once I started putting this out there and building the website and everything, everyone's like, Jen, we had no idea. I said, yeah, because I was always a happy-go-lucky one.
See?
I was the one that was there for you,
Yep.
but I was always suffering silently at home, and I was in hell.
And that's
Not
why I
gonna lie.
said we have this image that we think we have to be put together, and inside there, some of the people that are so well put together are the most broken.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable is something they don't want to feel comfortable with, because then that means I'm not who I was expected to be, or someone would see me that way and they won't see me that way anymore, whatever those are. And I felt that way too. I was going through my own struggles, as anybody does. So, Judy, you actually took a part in this film.
I did.
I had to pay her a lot.
And you had to mention, you had already mentioned, you gave it away, that you didn't know that you were going to play your own part.
Right.
What part of this made you decide that this was, you needed to do it?
The actresses that I was auditioning for to play this role, it was more of like, this is a role I've always wanted to try. It's a great challenge. And my thought was, Taryn's not very likable in the beginning.
What's the character's name?
Taryn.
Taryn, okay.
Yeah.
And a lot, it's just, I was scared. I mean,
Absolutely.
the only thing I knew, because what ended up happening was, like, I went to was a holding facility, meaning the state of Arizona says if you try taking your life, you have to be under observation for up to 5 days. And then they decide, do we lock you up, you need more help, or do we feel you're safe, you can go out, to society. And so there's a lot of that. I know what the smells were. I know what the temperature was. I know that the only thing I knew from this type of place was what I saw in the TV and the movies. It's like, I'm very curious. So if I look at you the wrong way, are you going to lunge across and try to harm me or something? But to my surprise, I got like more love letters and stuff. But what I realized is, the audience, how does the audience cheer for somebody that's not very likable in the beginning, not understanding that they're just scared? And hence, bringing Mrs. Kelly, so it actually shows Taryn's more true side. But when I was auditioning these actors, I just felt that they did not really
Connect with the character you were trying to portray your own story about, right?
And to tell you the truth,
Yeah.
yeah. But then I said, wait a minute, I really rock as an actress. Why would I give somebody else to play my life when I'm going to bring in the reality and the truth to it?
Well, and here you're also able to connect with the people more. And I know I just did a project of my own. When you're connecting with them, the emotions are real. The only part that's the tough part is, and I'm sure you can relate to this, there are things that you left back in that time frame that you've gone past and healed. Worked with.
Yeah.
And there's still always going to be triggers. That's always going to be.
Yeah.
But you're now going back, and it's a challenge to say, I got to go through this feeling again. but now you have more knowledge going through it, so you know you're not going to follow through with what you initially had done.
Believe it or not, it was very cathartic for me, but also the challenge was, because it took me 12 years to get this done, I would be moving on, I'd become stronger, or learning how to recognize and deal with my depression, because there's never going to be a cure. So my thing is, we got to learn how to live with it, but there is a good way to live with that.
So we talked about the suicide part, and we didn't talk about where the depression came from.
It's a chemical imbalance. I did so much research on this, because when I realized I wasn't going to die, I went to the Mayo Clinics. I went everywhere. I'm like, I'm going to discover, you know, there's got to be a cure for this. And what I realized is no two brains are the same. And because of that, and it is a chemical imbalance, a lot of people, you know, the word depression just comes with, ooh, stay away, or you're that, or, you know, I don't want to talk to you, where they don't realize that a lot of very loving, intelligent, creative people suffer from this. But Edison, Einstein, Lincoln, and so it just, here's what I knew. When people first started asking me about my film to pitch, I used to say, well, this character, Taryn. And like you said too, but I just realized, I said, screw it. 22 years ago, this is what I did. Yes. This is me, I'm Taryn. And then I realized people were like paying attention. And I could still, because this was back in like 2013, I could still see people kind of like, I want to talk to you, but I'm afraid to. But what I realized, because I've been promoting this since, well, we started writing in 2010, but by the time we were going to filming again in 2015, people were actually communicating with me or reaching out. And now on my set, it's just, it was fantastic. It was just like, it's just an average conversation, but because people felt safe. And I love that direction that we're going. I still think we're a ways from it, but we're getting there.
So you already mentioned this, the chemical imbalance, and there are a lot of people that would say that as well. Some, it has to do with what their walk of life is and what has been a trigger.
Right. With that, or even like, you know, you look at the NFL players. Yes. There are now the studies where their head bangs, you know, so many times and everything like that, the trauma and all that, where it's like, well, what's happening to them doing these crazy antics? So there's so much still to be studied on it. But right now, and you know, I could be correct, I'm just going from my own experience. All I saw was everybody was just being over-medicated and not talking about it. And what's happening is, like, especially with creative types, they're like, I'm a zombie. I can't do this. I'd rather just not be on it, and that's not safe necessarily as well. But I always tell people, because I was fortunate, and Judy, you're a godsend to me as well, because I mean, I still suffer. Yeah. But the difference is checks and balances. The big one is, am I eating, am I sleeping? I cannot stress that a lot. It's those
and
triggers.
What are you eating too?
And what are you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I had a support group back then where I could call anyone and just be like, man, I'm in a dark place. And the first thing they would say, have you eaten or drank or, you know, slept? But then when I started getting through this film and I started getting stronger and everything, because I think what it was even though I was playing myself, I was so busy, you know, producing this, that took away from, you know, my thoughts and everything, because it moved, or, oh my gosh, I'm doing this for everybody else, you know, so I still wasn't working on myself necessarily.
And a lot of people stay busy for that very reason.
Yeah.
If I stay busy, I don't have to deal with it, but what they don't realize is that they just keep holding it more and more and more. It just keeps building up more and more.
Yeah.
So was there anything that was traumatic in your life that made you feel maybe the depression more? Because not everybody gets depression or anxiety or anything like that. Was there something that may have triggered? Because I had this conversation not too long with someone else. I feel that life gives us our own issues in our lives, and then we're dealing with how we were raised with other generations that are giving you their trauma and their baggage because they did the best that they knew, they thought they knew, and then now you're holding theirs and yours and life and society. Was there something that maybe came about in your life that amplified the
It did
depression?
when we were filming in 2019. Towards the end of the third act, what came out as delivery was not how I planned it.
Oh.
I just went there, and what triggered was my mom. The abuse. I was mentally, physically abused. I left home at 14. Was living on the streets. And it's interesting too, because what you're saying, like, I remember I called my mom when I was in New York City back in 2001. I wanted to see if, like, she felt guilty for what she did and the abuse and everything. And she's like, what are you talking about? I raised you great. But then I learned, I researched that she was severely abused.
Her own traumas,
And
too.
her trauma, so her abusing me less than what she had, in her mind, she thought she was doing something right. And so I was able to forgive her. And then I was able to love myself. And I think that that is a big key to that, is allowing yourself to be who you are. You know, I guess with the depression was always like, I didn't feel like what was wrong with me? Why am I different? Why do I think different than everybody else?
Or that's our perception. We don't know that everyone
Right.
else has got that same thought process in their mind.
Exactly, and
too.
especially when you're young.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because I didn't know, I'm sure the depression I didn't really realize I had the depression until my 30s, because I think I was 33 when I tried this. And now I'm meeting people younger and younger,
Yes.
which is surprising me. And I think I might have known that, but I was just worried about where am I going to sleep or eat at that time. So I didn't really understand that. But what I came out of it is, you know what, I don't care if you like me because I like myself. And that's all that matters. And it took me so long to get there. And doing this film, the first two years that we were filming it, yeah, it was great, it was fun, you know, we didn't have the whole ensemble. But in 2019, I mean, my production designers listened tremendously, and I would walk on set and nobody existed. I mean, I transported back to when this took place, and I didn't expect that. And I went deeper into my depression, was actually depressed while I was on set, because I wasn't eating and sleeping, but I was just so thrown into it compared to like when we filmed in 2013 and 2015.
Yeah, and you're going back to where you had already gone past
Yeah.
that, and now it's brought back some trauma and some PTSD.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I didn't realize I had that there. And so, like, when I was writing this, I didn't want to sit here and put about the abuse growing up, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's why you tried taking your life. It's because you were abused or you got tattoos or this or that. And I said, no, we got to break that stigma. And I know you were asking me earlier about my head being shaved and the choice.
So in your character,
Yeah.
and I did get to see some of this, you had shaved your head.
Right.
What was that part of the character, or you actually?
Well, okay, so I was living in Montreal at the time. I couldn't work because I didn't, have a visa, and the gentleman I was engaged to could. And I started losing my hair, in my 20s. Talked to doctors, and the doctor said, well, if you shave it, it tends to grow back and thicker. Oh. And so I said to Kevin at the time, I said, hey, honey, since I can't work and I'm not really going out anywhere, do you mind if I try it? I want to see if it works. With depression, and Hemingway says this best, he said that you can spend a year planning your demise, or you wake up in 5 minutes and boom, it's done. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was isolated, and you've got the winters in Montreal, and I really wasn't seeing anyone. Kevin was working long hours, and a trigger was we had an argument, a breakup, and people like, and I did not try taking my life because of a breakup. I'm sorry, no man's worth that. But it was the end of like, oh my gosh, I spent 33 years of my life like this. My life's never gonna get any better. It's gonna be like this. I can't imagine this hell. And boom, I just went there and I didn't plan it. So hence, my head was shaved. Oh, and by the way, it does work. When you shave your head, it does grow in thicker. So yes, thank you. So when we were writing this, I got so tired of people sitting here, what I mentioned earlier. Oh, you were abused. Oh, you because you have all these tattoos.
Put a label
or this.
on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I said, the audience might be confused in the beginning. They might think I have cancer or whatnot. I said, if I'm doing my job right as an actress, they're going to forget after 10, 20 minutes that my head is shaved. They can make their own judgment. It's so funny because my wardrobe person, and because it was cold in 2015, Olive Flanagan was like, boy, I look like a tomboy. I mean, I was a tomboy growing up, but I was like so thankful because I was cold. But then I was like, oh, by the time you come out now, it's like it's so cool. Everybody has their head shaved. I'm like, no, I thought about that way before it was cool. But I wanted to. What was important to me. This film is 85% verbatim. And the greatest thing is that we are educating people, not just entertaining it, educating them. And a lot of people don't realize how much humor is in there. I thought, okay, I already know my audience. I know 95% of my audience that is going to relate. It's the 5% that I want to change 1% out of. I said, if I can change just 1% out of that.
You know what? It only takes one person.
Yeah.
So 5% is big.
Yes.
5% is big compared to just, it takes one person. Oh,
Yeah.
I like that.
And so I've had people that said, Jen, if it wasn't for you, I have no interest, I don't understand, I can't relate.
Yeah.
And they said, I not only was educated, I laughed, I cried, but I walked out of there feeling everybody has to see this movie.
Yeah.
Blew me away. Because you hope, but to actually achieve that, holy cow. And it still affects me now, because now that we're doing the festivals and everything, to hear the feedback of just people saying, it's as if you wrote this for me, or you've given me hope, or I was really feeling my lowest the other day, and I can't believe I'm getting emotional right now, but it's just because this is what I wanted to achieve with this film. That's why I felt like we can get all these celebrities, but I don't want them to be taken out of the moment. I want more relatability. And
Wouldn't you agree, the word vulnerable, people are like, oh, I don't want to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
But it could go one of two ways. You being vulnerable is allowing that 1% or 5% to say, thank you for being that voice that I'm afraid that I didn't have or didn't know that I had, or no one's going to understand, but now they can understand because I'm going to show them, because I can't say it, but if they see someone else, because we always take advice from someone else, right? Never the person that we're asking. And then the other part is, it frees us. But you also, with being vulnerable, has to come trust.
Yes.
And the right person's in your life, or person that you have to know where that vulnerable part of who you are is going to be okay and safe with that. And you put yourself completely out there because you said it was all about you, not in a selfish way, but then now you've got your 5%. And that say thank you for being vulnerable, because I trust you to share your story with me right here. That will in return also do the same thing your film has done. So we'll get into this, because Judy's been sitting here so patiently.
Well, I get emotional too.
I see.
I when she was talking, I tried
I
not
have
to.
seen. So you played a part in this film. What part did you play? And tell me about the character that was supporting what she was doing.
I was the mother of Maria, which Maria was a young girl that was placed in the same place where she was at on the film. And she was having issues with her family. So I was there yelling at her, actually. I was screaming at her. I was upset with my daughter. And you know what? I took that role not knowing how deep it was going to go. And that's the truth. When I got the call, I thought, okay, how did they find me? That's the first thing that crossed my mind. And then I learned by talking to Jennifer and others that were on the set when I was there, before I arrived, of course, they said to me that I had worked with the person that I worked, I played the mother, Maria's mom. So her brother is a director also from Chicago. I'm originally from Chicago. I had worked with him.
Yes, okay.
I had worked with him many years ago, and I'm talking way back. I was surprised they even remember my name.
You made an impression.
And when they told me that, I said, oh, I remember Juan. So his sister was the daughter on the film. My daughter.
Oh my gosh.
So that's, but anyway, it was really interesting. But like I said, I didn't expect it to go as far as it did. And I have to say, I'm so proud.
You should be.
Jennifer.
Oh, no,
also.
your performance
no.
is amazing. Are you kidding me?
I played the mom, the mean old mom yelling at my daughter there. And I think, you know what? When I was growing up, that's all I heard. The screaming and yelling and stuff, you know? And so, it's touching to me because I had family members also that were not all there, to be honest.
Isn't it interesting how you came in to just be an actress and take a part on a role that you weren't really sure, even though we read the script, because I just got to do my own, so I now understand and respect it wholeheartedly, as well as the heart you put into it. That she, in her story, brought something that was deep in you that you didn't even think was going to come about.
Oh, definitely.
All because of one other person sharing something because they were vulnerable to say, this is what's happened to me. And then you were talking about the role that you're playing in a facility of a bunch of people, I'm assuming, because I haven't seen all of the film, that were there not for mental health issues, but for different things, and you're yelling at your daughter because of something you didn't understand as the character and her own traumas, as I mentioned a little while ago, the traumas that we each carry on from generation to generation until we say, it stops with me.
And this is, Maria existed, and what was great is, and as an actor, and trusting in what I told it, because Judy, I remember you're like, well, read the script, and I'm like, well, you have no lines, but here's what I want. I want you to create the dialogue. But I want it in Spanish. I want it realistic. And, the story that I was told with Maria was so important to me because in real life, she told me that her family didn't want her to be with her boyfriend who was, she was young and her boyfriend was probably like 20 years older. And I'm like, well, that's ridiculous, so they're locking you up for this. It went further. Obviously too, in the family. But it also, what I love how the scene comes out is, what happens in the case of people with depression is friends and family turn their depression onto them. Well, look what you're doing to me. It's like, whoa, 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 this person's going through this. Don't turn it around on you. And so that's why, when you see my film, I guarantee you, it is not like any other film in this subject matter. I kept it so brutally raw and honest. But what works on this film is it's the perspective of us that try taking our life, continually thinking about it. Not, we all get sad. Everybody does. It can come and it can go. But when it's lifelong, and I needed to say, wait a minute, stop with if you want to understand this or you don't understand it, to have this. And you played it, all of you, even everybody that was in that scene, so spot on. It was as if I was witnessing it for the first time, even though I already saw it. And I just gave a little direction, but I also researched the buttons out of my cast, and I just knew you could do it. I was just like, I know you can do it. Go for it, and you did.
So there's a little healing in there for you as well.
Yeah, and this is what I'm learning too. I didn't realize that, and wow.
It was, yeah. It sure was. A lot of things.
But what you said, little things that we do in life, we don't realize the smallest little things that can affect in such a great positive way and open doors.
Well, and it could be another part too, where we're doing stuff we don't realize that we're hurting someone else maybe too.
Yeah.
And it's hard to try and put yourself in a position all the time. Like I said, we go through the roller coaster of emotions, but you're like, well, you made me feel this way. And they're like, well, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Or you've got someone that says, this is what I'm going through, but let's turn it on everybody else. So there's so many different facets to our emotions and our lives and our stories.
And seeing that when you do see this, I apologize to the doctor. I didn't do that in real life because now that I've been far away from it, because I told everybody, because they were like asking if I forget, because my dad found me the second time. And they're like,
and I got to talk to your dad in real life too.
Yeah. And he's one that, doesn't suffer, doesn't understand, but they're like, did you ask for his forgiveness? I'm like, I didn't do this to hurt him. I did this to stop my pain. Yeah. With Dr. Kepler, I was surprised where I went there to say, I'm so sorry, which I never said in real life. And I guess that was a way of me saying that to my dad. And that was, to tell you the truth, my dad saying that, the tears in his eyes, that's really the first time he...
I actually asked him when I met him and when I did the Q&A up there, and he told me that very moment too, that he had found you. And I said, how does that make you feel now? And he started crying. And that you did that. The forgiveness is such a big thing.
Plus,
Yeah,
and I didn't realize
agree.
the impact on that
Yes,
end.
yes.
So it does on both ends. So suicide not good,
No.
but let's move forward
Yep.
and educate on how we don't have to have such
Right.
a high range on that.
So I have one final question. It's not as deep.
Okay.
And I say this in every one of my interviews. I don't know where I came up with it, but it works for me.
Okay.
And if this was one and only question that I could ask someone and I have to walk away with making my own assumption of who they are, not in a good or a bad way, just, oh, okay, and then be able to go along with my life, it's this question. So I'm going to let Judy go first since she didn't get to talk as much.
It's
I know.
fine.
We did drag her on at the last minute.
Okay.
What message would you like to leave everyone based on your journey of life?
Wow, that's really
That's a good question.
a good, very, very good question. In fact, I always tell people, to be honest, that you have to be true to yourself. And I'm about to cry, and I don't want to
And
do
you're
that.
okay to do that.
You have to be true to yourself, and you have to be as open as possible.
Vulnerable. Yes.
Yep.
And you know what? Here's the thing too, and I didn't mean to interrupt because
No,
I
no,
understand
that's
the
fine.
cry part. I have a tendency to do that. You know why? Because it's really who we are, and sometimes
Exactly.
we're afraid to tell someone,
Yeah.
I'm not okay today,
Yeah.
or I want to just cry.
Reach
Doesn't
out.
make you weak.
No,
though.
it does
Just
not,
because
but
you
I
feel
was
that does
raised
not make you
thinking,
gotta
don't
reach
you
out.
cry, I'll give you a reason to cry. I'm like, I'm not crying.
I've heard that.
And then there's certain things that I'm like, that person's not going to see me cry because I don't want them to think
Yeah.
they just got something over me. Because
Yeah.
I've had that to happen
Yeah.
to me too. So
Yeah.
it's a matter of, I think, where it's coming from, and right
Of
now
course.
it's coming from your heart. So
Yes.
I'm thank you for sharing that you
Yes.
would feel that way.
Well, thank you.
Because we do all have a walk of life, and you know,
Yeah.
we don't have just one story in our lives.
Oh,
There are multiple
yeah.
things that come about our day, but the one thing we can learn is to try to recognize in our lives those things that are trauma that we are carrying, but then
Yes. Mm-hmm.
who else's stuff from generation or relationships that we're carrying that are not giving us the chance to be happy and true to ourselves, or someone
That's
who is new into our life, personally or professionally, they didn't put that feeling in you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't let them be the one that makes you feel you have to always feel that way because someone else made you feel that way. I hope that made sense.
No, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question to you is the same. What message would you like to leave based on your journey of life?
Oh, hope. One thing, you know, you
Yeah.
took the word depression and you remove 3 letters. Depression equals press on.
Like that.
It does.
Press on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you know, I'm having a hard time. Going back to love, just genuine love.
Love yourself.
Love
first.
yourself
Yes.
first.
always.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You have to. If you don't,
And surround yourself with good friends.
Yes, you got to know where there's the right
Yeah.
people in your life to feel comfortable, safe, and know that you can love yourself, not based on whether they love you.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
yes.
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 That is the hardest part. It's like, I gotta love me, but I can't. Like, if you walked away and I didn't, and I loved you more than I love myself, then I'm in trouble.
Well, and that's I had to do that. Well, I had to start being selfish in a sense because I would always put everybody ahead of me, and I'm like, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm no good to anyone if I continue down this road. So every so often it's like, you know what, I can't be there. I have to do this. It's because if my mental state's not there, then I'm gonna inspire anger and hatred,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't want that. So it's like, yeah, I might be disappointing, but life is about disappointments. But you know, it's just I need to be healthy.
Or continued unhealthy habits
Yes.
and relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
I feel like an expert and I'm not.
Yeah, I
I love doing what I do.
know. Same time next week. I mean, part 2.
Yeah, I'll give you a bonus of of no charge. Oh my gosh! Thank you both for being my guests and sharing your movie. And I know that it's in the works of being able to be available. Or do you want to share what is about?
We're in talks with distribution.
Okay.
But yeah, it's
Distribution. Yeah.
it's a true story that I think everyone should see. Just because it opens doors and insights and educates. And how many times have you watched movies? I love the Hallmark Channel.
Oh.
Because even though
Yeah.
you might be like, oh, this is cheesy, but it always has a positive message, you know,
Sure
at the
does.
end.
Yeah.
And once you understand where somebody's coming from, your heart is more where you have an understanding while they are hurting. And man, I just want to change the world one film at a time.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do right
When I was
now.
growing up, I was told, Christine, you can't save the world. I said, yes, I can.
Yes, you can.
One person at a
Domino
time.
effect is one person, and the domino.
That's right.
That 5% you were talking
Yep.
about is a one person. That's
Yep.
a lot.
That's
so
right.
yes,
That's
Yeah.
right.
perfect. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to my studio sponsor, the Motivated Mind Group, your global creative agency located here in downtown Chandler. And today's sponsor episode, or who sponsored the episode, is My Source Media. It's a printing company known for its personal attention and out-of-box thinking that helps businesses succeed. They're a husband and wife-owned small business located here, also in Chandler, Arizona, that offers a variety of printed items, including small format commercial printing, large format signage, custom apparel, and promotional products, having over 20 years of experience.
Nice.
Yes, she actually has done a lot of stuff for my. We're working on maybe doing some stuff with my
Do
stories
they
of
print
hope. thing.
T-shirts? That's always the hardest, finding a good
We
printer
got-
for
yeah,
T-shirts.
yeah, I'll put you in contact
Have
with
to
her
give me the
for
info.
sure. Yeah, she's done my cards. We're gonna do some more. Great,
Oh,
great
business
lady.
cards too.
Yes. See.
Hey.
Great.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. If you have a story you want to share, know someone who has a story, or you're a nonprofit making a difference in your community, please email me to the address of stories@christinehotchkiss.com. Until next time, everyone, I wish you well, and you take care.
Happy holidays.